So if you know a woman or you love a woman, then this episode is for you today. And I thought that I would explain the menopause, the perimenopause, the postmenopause, and all those confusing things from the point of view of a partner. It's a very confusing time for everyone, and that's not helped by the fact that for years it's been something of a taboo subject. It tended to be whispered about among women and definitely not talked about by men. So if you're listening to this and you are a male partner, I congratulate you for taking the interest. And I really hope that you're going to find this really helpful to understand and support your partner a little bit more. So let me give you a few definitions because it is definitely confusing. And what I will say in your defense is lots of women don't know these definitions. And in fact, lots of medics don't even know them. So just to be clear, the menopause really is talking about the end of a woman's menstrual periods. And you will have your menopause exactly 12 months after you have your very last period. So that's a little bit of a tricky one because in the perimenopause, which is a variable period of time leading up to the menopause that can last for years, you might find that your partner's having a period every 10 days or every 20 days, and then she doesn't have one for 3 or 4 months. I've even had patients who haven't had a period for 11 months and they think they're just about to get that last month and be postmenopausal, and then in fact they have another period. So it's a bit of a confusing definition. If your partner has had a hysterectomy then she's had and her ovaries removed, then she's had a surgical menopause. If she's had a hysterectomy but left her ovaries behind, it's very, very hard to tell when that menopause happens because, of course, she doesn't have any periods, but she does still have ovaries. So it's all a little bit confusing, but basically menopause is 1 year after you've had your last period. Perimenopause is a period that can be up to 10 years before that. And the postmenopause is everything after your menopause for the rest of your life. So hopefully that's clear. I know it's a little bit tricky, so bear with me. So what is happening during all of these times, particularly the perimenopause, is that there are lots of fluctuations in hormone levels. So women have estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, among many other hormones, but these are the ones that we're going to focus on today. So you might be surprised to know that actually testosterone is a very important and active hormone in women, and it's also changing and becoming less and less as they go through this period. Estrogen levels are all over the place, and that can be really contributing to lots of symptoms. Now, depending on the list you look at, there can be 34 symptoms or 47 symptoms or 39 symptoms, but what I'll tell you is there's just lots and lots of symptoms. And some of them you've probably heard of, but what is very clear is that this period of time is not just about hot flushes or hot flashes in the US. It's about so much more. So you can have irritability, brain fog, night sweats, extreme fatigue, lots of physical symptoms. You can have weight gain, change in body shape. You can have hair loss. You can have frozen shoulders. You can have joint pain. You can have anxiety that you've never had before in your life. You can also have vertigo, tinnitus ringing in your ears, itchy ears, dry eyes, dry itchy skin, a crawling sensation under your skin, to name but a few. So as you can see, there can be a lot going on for your partner, and it can feel extremely overwhelming and scary because sometimes women are really concerned that this is never going to end. The other thing that's really tricky about this period is the only thing that's predictable is the unpredictability. So some days you may find that your partner's in great form and seems like her old self. And then you can have days, hours, weeks where she just seems irritable, grumpy, not enjoying things, tearful. And as much as that's really challenging for you, it's also obviously incredibly challenging for her as well. Now, you may well be just really, really super irritating and annoying, and you might have taken 20 years to learn how to use the laundry hamper. But the reality is that there's no doubt there is an irritability, and this is actually caused by some chemical changes or hormonal changes in the brain. So you may find that your partner has a shorter fuse or is getting more annoyed and irritated over things that perhaps she would have let roll over her before. And it is really important, although it's tricky, that you try and bite your tongue as much as possible, because actually it isn't her. It's not her fault. It is actually lots of things changing and going really differently in her brain. Now, the good news is that for most women, there is a treatment that works very, very well, and that's hormone replacement therapy. Now, unfortunately, about 20 years ago, there was a study which caused a lot of bad publicity about hormone replacement therapy. But now it looks like the evidence would suggest that for the vast majority of women, hormone replacement therapy is a very, very safe option. So this may be in the form of a gel, a patch, tablets. It's something that your partner would get from their GP or their obstetrician gynecologist. So it's definitely an option. Now, there are people out there who've had specific types of, for example, breast cancer, where taking hormones might be a bit more problematic. But there are definitely other options. So no one actually has to suffer in silence with this. There are definitely options. And the main important thing is to get your partner talking about what's going on. And just like every man is completely different in how he experiences lots of things, every woman's experience of the menopause and the perimenopause and the postmenopause is completely unique. So there may be a proportion of women who absolutely sail through the whole process and really have very few symptoms, but they are definitely in the minority. And the vast majority of women will at least have some symptoms. And for, unfortunately, some women, these symptoms can be really debilitating. So you may notice that your previously very sociable partner now just wants to sit on the sofa and watch Netflix. She seems to not have any confidence. She's perhaps not going out and buying clothes or enjoying getting ready, going out, because she feels very self-conscious about the change in her body shape. She may well have put on weight, though she hasn't actually changed anything about what she's eating. So as you can imagine, this can really impact on someone's confidence. At this stage, it's really important to remember that you too are probably undergoing changes, because obviously you're going to be aging together. And I think it can be really helpful to perhaps vocalize some of the changes that you're noticing in yourself. And obviously you're not having a menopause, but you might be putting on a bit of weight, or your hair may be graying or hair receding, or maybe you're just not quite remembering things as well as you did either. A really good way just to disrupt a little bit of tension, maybe bring a little bit of intimacy and closeness, just by sharing some of how you're feeling about your transition towards, becoming older, and that can just reduce a little bit of that tension. I think supportive actions are really, really important, and it can be small gestures that can mean the absolute world. It's just noticing, I noticed that you're feeling a bit anxious about driving today. Would you like me to drive you to that appointment, or offering to accompany or help make an appointment to see the doctor? Or, if you've got teens or young adults or children still in the household, it's just taking charge when things seem a little bit fraught, just taking over and letting your partner go off and have a bit of a walk and have a bit of a peace, so that she can de-stress and the whole situation can de-escalate. And I think things like, running someone a bath, or, offering to go and get that dreadful snoring of yours sorted out, so that whenever the odd occasion she can actually close an eye with sleep, that, your snoring's not waking her up. Anyway, I'm joking, but the reality is that, sleep is a really, really, really challenging problem at this stage. Women feel utterly fatigued. They're often up and down multiple times during the night, going to the bathroom, feeling really hot. The covers are on and off, and they can just be going through the day on very, very little sleep. And obviously I understand that for you guys, that's really challenging too, but it just compounds all of the other symptoms that she's experiencing. While we're in the bedroom, let's not just shy away from talking about sex. Unfortunately, in this period of time, sex can become, quite frankly, downright painful or certainly uncomfortable. Often women feel like their sex drive has completely gone away, and actually pleasure just can be really, really tricky during this time. And they're often feeling just too tired, too exhausted, can't be bothered. And obviously that can feel really difficult for you. You might feel really rejected, or that, very concerned about your relationship. But my suggestion would be just to be as patient as you possibly can. This is definitely a phase that, most women will come out the other side. And my suggestion to you would be to go slow, respect the process, And if you are going to have sex, make sure you use lots of lube. So in Ireland, where I'm from, the menopause was always called the change of life. And that's obviously quite an old-fashioned term, but it definitely is a period where there's a lot of change going on for a lot of women. Women who previously have never had any mental health problems can suddenly feel anxious or depressed. Women who've always been able to maintain their weight or have a very slim figure will suddenly struggle with being able to cope with that change in body size and will be putting on weight. And women who often were very, very confident and felt very competent in their work and in their home life suddenly will find that their brain just isn't working quite as well as it did. And that can lead to big, big changes in confidence and how your partner feels. So in summary, education, I think, is the key. Walking this pathway together, educating yourself, anyone else who's in the household as well. If you're a boss or you work with women, I think it's really important that you just have a little bit more empathy, because this isn't just an excuse for being grumpy. There are really very, very real symptoms and consequences of going through the perimenopause and the postmenopause. And if we can do it with your support, then we're going to do it a much better. After 20 years as a GP, launching my clinics and running events for hundreds of women, specifically on menopause, I've learned that there is one thing that doesn't get spoken about enough, and that's educating men on the menopause. So I'm excited to announce that I've just launched a waitlist for a program that is designed specifically for men to help them understand exactly what menopause is all about and provide them with the tools to be a more supportive partner. From defining what menopause is to understanding the hormonal and emotional changes women experience, the symptoms that occur, mental health challenges, and everything in between. I've developed this program to give men the practical and mental strategies to enhance or maybe even recreate your connection as a couple, because the reality is that many couples lose their romantic spark during this time. So if this sounds like something you'd love to share with your partner, first send him this episode and then sign up to the waitlist to be notified as soon as we launch. When I started this podcast back in December 23, I knew that I was lucky enough to have amazing conversations with various health professionals across all facets of medicine and allied health. And I knew that you would probably really enjoy being a fly on the wall to hear what we talked about. And that's how the podcast was born. And what you probably don't know is that this is a bit of a passion project. We don't have any sponsors or funding. And without your help, we won't be able to continue bringing you these great guests. So if you can please spread the word about the podcast, share it with someone who you think might benefit from the conversation that you've just listened to. Or if you can leave us a review or a comment, it would mean the absolute world, because that actually helps the podcast spread further and get more people to hear our message and hopefully allow us to invite bigger and bigger guests onto the show. And I would so appreciate you helping me back. Thank you. This podcast and any information, advice, opinions, or statements within it do not constitute medical, healthcare, or other professional advice. Information is provided for educational and entertainment purposes only. If you have any health concerns, always consult your doctor.